Now we can proceed. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we're going to do things a little bit different. We have actually two meetings that we need to take care of. The first one is going to be the regular meeting of the Freeport Employee Benefit Trust on Monday, July 15, 2024 at 6 p.m. This meeting is being held for the following purposes. We have three items on the consent agenda. Consideration and possible action on approval of the Freeport Employee Benefit Trust meeting minutes from July 17, 2023. Number two, designating and authorizing the annual auditors for the City of Freeport to conduct an audit for the City of Freeport Employee Benefit Trust at such time as the audit for the City of Freeport is conducted. And number three, annual review and adoption of an investment policy and a list of qualified brokers that are authorized to engage in investment transactions with the City of Freeport Employee Benefit Trust. Council, this is a consent agenda, so all three items, of course, can be voted on at the same time, or if we want to do them individually, that as well.
Mayor, I'd like to separate item number one, because there will be some changes that need to be made. But items number 2 and 3, I am making a motion to approve as presented.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve items number 2 and 3 in the consent agenda. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a second by Councilman Rosso. Is there any questions or discussion needed on 2 and 3? Hearing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 4-0. All right, Ms. Molina, are you taking notes?
Okay. So on item number 1, on the previous minutes from the meeting on July 17th, 2023, there's a 2 incorrect members of City Council on there, and I would like to have that changed to myself and Mr. Winston Rosso, with everything else being correct.
Did you get that? All right, do we hear a motion?
And I'll make a motion to approve number 1 with those changes.
We have a motion to approve with the amended changes by Councilman Matamoros. Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second.
And a second by Councilman Rosso. Any other comments on this? Hearing none, all those in favor state aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Agenda item number 4, consider and approve proposals for employee medical insurance, dental insurance, life and AD&D insurance, long-term disability insurance, HRA, HSA, FSA, and COBRA administration. Ms. Ezell.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
The City of Freeport, we issued requests for proposals for medical insurance, dental insurance, life insurance, kind of the whole gambit this year. The only one we did not bid out was vision because we had a 2-year contract with the current provider that was locked the rates in for 2 years. We received 3 proposals from United Healthcare, Blue Cross, and Cigna. United Healthcare was automatically pulled because their bids were not competitive. We went back, our Hub International went back to Cigna and Blue Cross Blue Shield and negotiated it between the two carriers to get the best price. Cigna's final renewal price was a 4.68 increase to medical and a 5% increase on dental. Blue Cross Blue Shield proposed a 3.55% decrease on medical, a 4% increase on dental, and a 24% decrease on life and AD&D, an 11% decrease on long-term disability. And then on the health coverages, and it is staff's recommendation to go with Blue Cross Blue Shield. As we get the whole packet, it would actually decrease. I did include in the packet the PowerPoint presentation from Hub International. We're saving approximately, let's see, what was it? I believe it was $67,000 because we are recommending some plan changes. The plan changes that we're talking about is what we call the buy-up plan, where it has the lowest deductible, no longer offering the employees with a $500 deductible because that plan drives up our premiums on all of the rest of them. So we're recommending going with a $1,000 deductible for the buy-up plan for employees to buy down their deductible. And then with Blue Cross Blue Shield, instead of it being a 70-30 plan, which is what Cigna is, Blue Cross Blue Shield offers an 80-20. The co-pays are a little bit more expensive. The pharmacy is competitive with Cigna. So it is our recommendation that we move over to Blue Cross Blue Shield because it gives the city the best savings with the better policy. Also, we are recommending moving our FSA, HSA, HRA management to Optum. Optum already has our HRA, and Cigna has the other two, but since we're moving away from Cigna, it's less expensive to go over to Optum for that management. So that's what you have before you this evening.
Thank you. Council, does anyone have any questions for Ms. Ezell? Or comments in general?
I do, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
First off, thank you for looking at getting better rates for our employees, plus the city. The only question I have is when we negotiated this with the dental, the only thing that I see that's kind of scary for the employees is a x-ray for once every 60 months. That's a long time, especially for younger people who may be in the plan.
That has now become the standard for dental care. So they looked at that, and this is what everyone is trending to help keep dental insurance more affordable. It was one of the things that we did ask, and the Hub International explained to us, this is now the norm for dental policies. One of the things we're going to kind of look at maybe next year is like we have the buy-up plan for health insurance. We've talked about bringing next year a buy-up plan for dental for those parents who also have teenagers and stuff that want orthodontia, because this plan does not cover that. So that's one of the things we're looking at kind of in the future, but we just couldn't get there this year.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. Council?
Questions. Mrs. Zell, the Blue Cross Blue Shield coverage versus the Cigna, was there a calculated net gain or loss between the two?
Yes.
Was the difference in terms of value a lower net gain, or was the difference a value of a higher net loss?
The city would save money.
We would save money overall.
Yes, we're saving about $60,000, and then we're still tweaking it a little bit to where it could possibly save us $100,000 once, if y'all approve it tonight, then Blue Cross Blue Shield, that's a mouthful to say. Once council approves it, they'll go back again, and then they'll bundle it all together, which could actually bring us in almost maybe $100,000. So it's between a $60,000 to $100,000 savings to the city.
Thank you. A couple of other questions here. Does it cover pre-existing conditions?
It'll roll, so if you're covered currently, it'll cover you on the new insurance.
Okay. And if somebody comes in as an employee and they were unemployed for a while, are those pre-existing conditions covered?
Under the law, yes.
Okay. And also, I've asked this question in the past, and I'm just curious, because I've seen it in other organizations, curious if this might be an option in terms of if there's like better coverage or better rates for employees that do not smoke, if we can commit to that.
One of the things that we're looking at, which Ms. Fisher has later on the council agenda, is we are known for having higher claims. So one of the things that we're going to put in place, if you also choose to do, is that employees are required to have an annual physical to catch things earlier before they get out of hand. High blood pressure, diabetes, to catch those things earlier, where we'll require employees to have either a biometric screening or an annual physical with their doctor. If they choose not to do that, based on what is going to be presented to you, it'd be additional $25 a paycheck for them to pay for their own insurance coverage. So we are looking at those different things, and Ms. Fisher is bringing one of those items to you in the council agenda.
So that won't be voted upon tonight, but that'll be brought
No,
later on?
it actually is tonight in the council agenda.
Okay, great. That's good to hear. I'm all for making sure that we have as much coverage as possible, and the annual physical, for everybody to participate, if the city's going to cover it, and if you don't want to participate, then it's on your own dime.
The annual physical, of course, is at no cost to the employee because that's under the wellness coverage, and it is free to the employee to have it. So that's why that we're bringing this forward as well, and to catch the things earlier.
Is the idea that by having these mandatory physicals, is that the insurance companies are basically saying, hey, listen, if we're able to track this early on, then the likelihood of higher claims later on are going to save you money
That is
as a city?
correct. Yes.
Okay.
That is the whole purpose of this, not only just from the insurance carriers. It is something that Mr. Petty, myself, and Mrs. Fisher have discussed because of our claims experience and the higher costs of medical care, is that hopefully by installing, this policy being brought forward, is that we can save long-term and keep our employees healthier
Yeah.
by bringing this forward.
So with the annual physical requirements, you'd have lower premiums and, I guess, better coverage?
It helps, yes.
Yeah, good to know. And then I guess the next question I have, and these are some simple questions, and I just want to make sure I cover them for the sake of conversations that I've had with residents and employees in the past. Here, even in the last couple of meetings, these particular topics were brought up, and so I want to ask these questions in a general context. So if an employee gets injured on the job, say they were in a fender bender, they're covered on this?
No, that's not their health insurance. That's covered under workers' compensation, which is through Texas Municipal League, IRP.
So if they're driving a city vehicle?
That's workers' comp.
That's workers' comp.
That does not affect the health care.
If they trip and fall at City Hall's parking lot?
If they're on work hours, it's workers' comp.
Okay.
If they're in the process of working.
So what is categorized as not being workers' comp? Categorization of coverage?
If you're not being paid, if you're not on the clock, if you're not physically on the clock, and you
So-
get injured outside of,
So they're at home, they fall in their
that's not
kitchen?
workers' comp.
So then they would be insured here?
That is correct. Or if I get if there's an accident on my way home, that's not covered by workers' comp.
And so, by the same token, we've just had this hurricane, right? And so there's a lot of moisture around. And so there might be mold. So if they're exposed to mold at home, or whether they're exposed to mold at City Hall, would they be covered? And how would they delineate that?
If it's mold at home, they're not covered. I can't answer the other one because that's a TML IRP one, and you would have to prove that that's where they were exposed. So I cannot answer that question because there's a whole process that would be gone through. I'm sure Mr.
Yeah, bottom line is, that's why we have insurance. So whether it's covered through personal health insurance or workers' comp, there's a subrogation, they would fight it out. So basically, we would file a claim with both and let them figure it out.
We would actually.
Factually.
So we would file a claim on.
On workers' comp.
Yes, for workers' comp.
Okay, but not on the insurance.
Correct.
Okay. But they could file an insurance claim on their
Yeah,
own, right?
Of course they can.
Yeah.
If they claim that it happened outside of the scope of their work hours,
Mm-hmm.
traditional work duties, then yes. And then the two insurance companies would fight it out.
Yeah. And if it was actually affecting, or it ended up being not workers' comp, but the insurance, then premiums would go up and everything else would be affected, is that right?
Premiums don't just go up because of one claim. It's the
No,
whole-
not automatically, but
It's
possibly.
it's the experience of the whole
The
population.
pool of.
Yeah, the whole pool of employees. So you could have one high claim and a bunch of small claims, but then those small claims can add up to where your experience is
Right.
still.
And then
so-
Blue Cross and Cigna will all say, well, we're kind of looking at your risk pool, or the pool of employees and the risk that they all are under, and in the last 5 years, no one's been taking any annual physicals, et cetera, et cetera. And
Yes,
so
sir.
that all comes into play.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
That's all I had. Thank you very much.
All right, council, I will entertain a motion for agenda item number 4.
I'll make a motion, Mayor.
Councilman Pena makes a motion to approve.
Yeah.
A motion to approve by Councilman Pena,
I'll second that motion.
and a second by Councilman Matamoros. Any more discussion needed? Hearing none. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed state nay. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Ms. Ezell. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this particular meeting.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion by Councilman Pena. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
A second by Councilman Matamoros. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned. Now, we will go into the regular meeting of the Freeport City Council, Monday, July 15, 2024. We'll call this meeting to order and declare a quorum is present and declare notices have legally been posted pursuant to the Open Meetings Act. If you would, everybody rise. I will ask Councilman Rosso to lead us in the prayer and the pledge.
Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for allowing us to come together once again. Thank you, Lord, for all is well. We thank you, Lord, for this council. We thank you, Lord, for the city of Freeport, the state of Texas, great United States of America. We ask you, Lord, to bless us, keep us, guide us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On the Texas flag,
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, and you may be seated. We are going to start with citizen comments. And as usual, we're going with ladies first. Okay. Miss Sandra Levy. I've seen her here just a second. And she had request, she's got someplace she's got to go, so she had requested to go first. So, we're going to hold off. I'll call her up as soon as we see her. Mr. Wade Dillon.
All righty. Good evening, Mayor Kane, City Council.
Good evening.
I just want to take a moment to give a brief report of the Freeport Historical Museum after Hurricane Beryl. As the hurricane had swept through on Monday, I reported to the museum on Tuesday morning to observe and inspect any damages to the museum. Thankfully, all the museum received was wind-driven rain under our rear doors, and we went without power for about 6 days. which could have been detrimental to the museum had it not been addressed. On Tuesday morning, the Freeport Public Works Department had secured me a generator to run fans and dehumidifiers to keep cool air running throughout the museum in order to prevent a mold bloom and protect the museum's collection and artifacts from humidity and hot temperatures. Throughout the 6-day ordeal, I managed to keep the museum's interior temperatures in the mid-70s, frequently checking on the artifacts in and out of displays and observing the museum facility for changes, leaks, and so on. A quick observation of the roof by maintenance staff revealed no damage. In between those intervals, I took it upon myself to begin cleaning Memorial Park, later assisting the street department in their efforts to clear the park and streets of roof and tree debris. I know there is an expectation of city workers to do their job and do it well, but I want to acknowledge Director Rudy Regal, Superintendent David Villegas, Supervisor John Perez, and maintenance staff Casper and Manny in assisting me in keeping the museum safe. I truly appreciated their commitment to not only the museum, but the Freeport community as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Wade. Mr. Thomas Zerlot.
Good evening. I'm Thomas Zerlot. I live at 1824 North H in Freeport. I've been in Freeport 74 years. And my question is, the road on Jones Road, I don't know if you're familiar with it, they call it Taylor Jones Road, which kind of goes off of Yellowstone through the trailer park. It's maintained by I'm not sure who, and that's the question. They have the side boom mower that they mow the ditch with. Well, my ditch that runs beside my house, east and west, has come to the point to where it's about a 30-degree angle, and it stays water all the time. And at 84 years old on that lawnmower, it gets a little bit spooky. And I was wondering if there's any possibility he could just come and make a pass with that side boom mower and take care of it. Right now, I've done what I can, but I can't get to the middle, and the grass is about a foot high, and it obstructs the drainage in that area. And it's a problem to me. I try to do what I can to keep it, but if they could do that, it sure would help me. Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll look into that for you. Still no Sandra Levy. Mr. Manning Rollerson.
Good evening, council.
Good evening.
First, I'd like to thank the city workers. Y'all did an excellent job. Y'all did good. Y'all did real
Clap
good.
with you.
We didn't flood. We weren't underwater. That's a plus. But I do have to say something to the leaders. You in the city every day. You live in your ward every day. You know those power poles are bad because you live there. I thank you, Mr. Lance, for cleaning that ditch off our street because that's why we didn't have water. Our drainage worked perfectly fine. We went and moved the trash out the way so the water go down. So it did good. We got a lot of busted windows, a lot of rain-driven damages in our homes. Roofs all over the streets over there where I live at. Ms. Margie roof blew off our house, a 70-something-year-old lady in our house all night long going through those changes. Hispanic lady, 83 years old, all night long going through those changes till we got them out the house. The day after the storm, every activist group and nonprofit hit the streets in this city. Where was y'all at? That's my concern, because you should have been prepared. Where was y'all at on that meeting with the government? We was there. Why y'all wasn't there? It's important to address the issues of the city. When CenterPoint tell you they can't do the power lines, it's your job to force them to do the power lines. Because when them lines is down, the city is dark, and it reflects on everybody that sits up there. You say you're a new administration, we shouldn't have old problems. You should know how to hit the streets and get it done. We done it. We don't have the budget the size that you guys got, but we made it happen. So you guys can do better. And I am with the Freeport Haven Project for Environmental Justice. It's time to get some houses in this community. Public-based housing. Because these houses is too old and these people cannot live in these houses like this. They are dangerous for the health of the people. So we need to get a plan going that public housing is in this city. Thank y'all.
Thank you,
Y'all
Ms.
did good.
Rosen. Mr. Kenny Hayes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
I want to just commend the city. I didn't see anything wrong. I saw city workers out cleaning ditches with all kind of equipment. I saw them getting us prepared for the storm. And I really want to give a shout out to the firemen and the EMS because they ran nonstop Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. You know, I could see them from my house and they were not stopping all day long. So I think you did a great job preparing the city.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Ms. Desiree Pearson, you're gonna plead the fifth. And Miss Sandra Levy, did she make it back? I know she walked out with Chief Motley.
Mayor, she needed to go home. She's been having some holiday, but she wouldn't come by to speak when she went home.
All right. Thank you, Chief. All right, the consent agenda. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items. Number 1, consideration and possible action on the approval of the City Council meeting minutes from July 1st, 2024. Number 2, consideration and possible action approving the resolution number 2024-2869, accepting the actions of the City of Freeport Employees Benefit Trust. I misread that. Those are the only two items on our consent agenda. So, council, I will entertain a vote.
Mayor, I'm going to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Matamoros. Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second.
We have a second by Councilman Rosso. Council, any discussion needed? Hearing none, all those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 4-0. For the record, I would like to state that Councilman Davis is not present this evening. I'm being told he had a flat on his way in. Agenda item number 3, the proposed fiscal year 2024 through 2025 budget discussion. Ms. Ezell.
Each council member was given a proposed budget book and a copy of the presentation. The first thing is I'm going to go over a summary of the general fund. So the proposed revenues and the proposed expenditures, we have a net revenue over expenditures in the proposed budget for 2025 of $803,421. We have some transfers going out and then an ending fund balance of $7,560,966. Of that, $4,668,124 you are required to keep in reserve based on your fund balance reserve policy. That leaves available $2,892,843. However, we got hit by a hurricane. That's not going to be the case. Yes, we believe that FEMA is going to help reimburse us for some of our costs, but they are not going to reimburse us for all of our costs. I'm estimating about $1 million in deductibles on properties. We still have things that we have to pay for that are not covered by insurance, because I stated this when Nicholas came through. It's a named storm. The only insurance that we have is windstorm. We do not have regular insurance. We can get $25,000 from our insurance company for wind-driven rain at the various facilities. But the city has to pay for the repairs to our buildings and our infrastructure. Yes, we're going to apply for anything and everything that we can through FEMA aid. However, you know, it depends on what they'll approve and what they want. But there is some serious damage to some of the city facilities. And now y'all know one of them is the old city hall. We had the fence blown down at Public Works. We've had roof damage at both fire stations. Like I told Mayor Kane and Mr. Petty, TWIA is here to talk to y'all later about the processes when y'all talk about the properties. But that $2.8 million is not going to be there. So this budget process, kind of to go back to what Mr. Petty and I have been seriously talking about, is that my job and his job is not to just look at the next fiscal year, is to look at the sustainability of the city a little bit further out. Based on this budget before the 2.8, we took and looked at this budget really hard, because there are some hard decisions that are going to be facing the council, not just this year, but in the next coming years, because some things are not sustainable, because inflation is going like this, but our revenues are not coming in to meet that inflation. So that $803,000, that's kind of scary to me, because that's after the supplemental requests and stuff that the departments have put in and some different things. And Mr. Petty and I went through this. So it's kind of scary, thinking in the future. So it is all about this next fiscal year and sustaining us in the future. That is something I have stressed over the past 2 years. Haven't really got as much warming feeling as I have with Mr. Petty, that, hey, look, we've got to look at the future years, not just next year, because we need to be able to still provide the same services and pay for some of the things we have to in the next few years. The next page just kind of gives you a little bit detailed by the categories, so you can see where the changes are. Another thing that I want to state, the budget that is before y'all and is being proposed does not have any property tax increase anticipated in it, nor any water sewer rate increase in it. So at this time, the budget you have before you is no increases in rates or property taxes. So this is just by the line item. We're estimating an additional $658,350 in revenues. But it's the different categories.
That last slide, what page is that on the report?
Can I borrow somebody's book, because I don't have mine? The general fund summaries are on page 10 and 11. Those are the summaries, and then you get into more detail.
The 800,000 was on what page?
Is actually on page 10 and 11, both of them. One is if you look down the revenue less expenditures, it's that gray bar that's on that page. Okay, just kind of some highlights. The industrial district revenue was increased based on the estimated amount for 23-24. Property tax revenue was budgeted for no tax increase. Sales tax revenue was increased by 6.5%. Charges for services increased 7.8%. franchise, and what we call other taxes increased by 4.4%. Fines and forfeitures decreased by 15%. Intergovernmental revenue decreased by 11%. Licenses and permits increased by 10%. Investment earnings increased by 100%. Miscellaneous income decreased by 808, almost 9%, which was still an overall increase in revenue of $658,350. The next slide goes over the expenditures by category. The expenditures are increasing $893,139 over the budget from 2024. There is a 3% cost of living increase in there for most employees, barring the police department, who are set on a pay matrix, and they each year the police department gets a raise based on that matrix. There is a 0.75% increase to employee retirement. Property and liability insurance is increasing up to 40, maybe 50% in some areas. That's based again on our experience and the cost of to replace things. Our experience with property and liability insurance, those are car accidents, workers' comp is going up as well. It's based on our experience because they look at a 4-year experience on our policy. So we have some high years in 2020, 2019, 2020, and 2021. So it looks at that, and those will start dropping off. We have one big errors and omission claim from city administration a few city managers ago that is still going to carry for one more year. So that drives up our experience. The police and electronic computer maintenance increased by $85,000. This is a one-time increase. Budgeting software, application tracking software, a residency incentive program, website upgrades, CGIS update, CPR training, fire and arson software, drone aircraft, workbook programs, museum manager pay increase, and Main Street coordinator pay increase. The only one that is not what we call reoccurring was the $85,000 in the police department. That's one time. All these other costs are considered reoccurring. The capital expenditures, this is where the general fund transfers money into the equipment and vehicle fund. The things that were budgeted this year in the proposed budget was the budgeting software, applicant tracking software, server replacement, website upgrade, CGIS update, additional key fobs, stop sticks, SWAT gear and equipment, drone aircraft, Knox box for city buildings, AC replacement at Fire Station 1, 2 zero-turn mowers, it's supposed to be 72-inch at the parks, and then a pro grader at the golf course. We are transferring $500,000 into the streets and drainage fund for projects to be determined. The water wastewater fund ended better than anticipated, way better than anticipated. We brought Surfside on, and we had some high usages at the U.S. Department of Energy, but it is still shows that it is almost $1.3 million below what's required in the reserve. That I did on the revenue side, I adjusted water revenue to actuals, sewer revenue to actuals. Actually, I adjusted all revenues to actuals. And again, this budget does not propose any rate increase in water or sewer rates. The biggest expenditure changes was BWA. I did a 5% increase because we haven't received their letter yet. And I increased the OLEA's budget by 14%. and I still have not received their letter yet. So these were just numbers based on what I anticipate for next year. Next, we have the calendar. We're presenting the budget today. August 5th or 19th, y'all will have the property tax stuff come. I'm hoping it's the 5th, but it could be the 19th. It depends on how soon the county gets me the tax rate calculations. We'll do the vote on the not to exceed tax rate and set the public hearings. On the 19th, possible budget workshop, September the 3rd, public hearing on the budget, possibly potential vote on the budget and the tax. And then September 9th is the deadline. If y'all decide y'all want the tax rate to be above the, what we call the no new revenue rate, don't expect that to be the case. But if it is, September the 9th would be your last drop dead date to adopt everything because of the way the publications have to be done. It's open for questions, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mrs. Zell. Council, do you have any questions for Mrs. Zell? I know we were wanting to go a pretty skinny budget this year, and with the storm, it sounds like we're gonna need to really sharpen our pencil.
Yeah, I mean, just what I was told by Mr. Petty and Chief Motley, debris alone is $2 million. Debris removal could cost us $2 million. That we're pretty sure we're gonna get back. But remember, it can take 9, 10 months to get those funds back, which means we are going to have to pay those funds out first. I just want y'all to be mindful. This was done before last week, so that $2.8 million, I will tell you, is probably not there. So I don't think if I'm gonna be honest, which Lance has told me to be honest, and I hate to be the doom and gloom girl standing up here, I think what you're looking at is what we got, because it's just not gonna be there after this storm. And then God forbid we get any more, because it's only July.
You have something?
You have a question. You had mentioned earlier about the insurance claims and the insurance coverage that we currently have for the different city structures.
Yes, sir.
And our coverage is what amount? 25,000?
No, okay. For when there is a named storm that comes into our area, the most that we can get from our TML IRP, which is our liability and property insurance, is $25,000 for wind-driven rain. Anything else we have is through windstorm. Windstorm is high deductibles and requires a lot of damage before it'll pay. Like when Nicholas hit, I think we got one $12,000 reimbursement, even though we had all that damage at City Hall and everything, the old City Hall. We had to pay all of that out of our pocket. I can tell you now, I'm not gonna turn around and look at the TWIA representatives, but I bet you we're gonna hit it on Old City Hall. We're gonna meet over our deductible on that one. But they go out, they assess, they come back. They'll explain more of that to you guys later. But most of this stuff is not going to be covered by insurance, except for some of the buildings. The fence damages, some of the other things at the parks, those awnings that came off the gazebo roof. Trust me, I went around and toured every damaged city facility Tuesday and Wednesday. And there's a lot of damage that we are going to have to pay for. And like I said, yes, we will submit everything we can to FEMA, but it can be a crapshoot. But we're gonna do everything in our power to make sure that we get as much back as we can.
So we're looking at two things, right? Windstorm coverage and FEMA to help us
Correct.
recoup the cost of the damages to the city
You
facilities.
can recoup some of the costs, not all of them.
So was our windstorm coverage sufficient? Could we
Yes.
have done something more to get better coverage? I'm
No.
curious.
No, because as I brought to y'all before, and I spoke to y'all about when we have two different in windstorms. We have TWIA and we have ICAT. When I brought you ICAT, we talked about 1%, 2%, 3% deductibles, and I told you where we are, go 1% deductible. There was a reason I told you go 1% deductible. Because when you have a $2 million building, you're looking at $200,000 deductible.
Right.
So we have gotten the best coverage, but windstorm coverage is very, very expensive. So we have it on the major buildings.
So our TWIA is at 1% deductible, and our ICAP is at what?
No, our ICAT is at 1% and our TWIA is at 2% because TWIA only offers 2%.
So I'm fine with the deductibles. I'm just curious about the coverage. What we had, total coverage, was it like 10 million, 20 million, 1 million, 2 million,
TWIA is 4 million.
4 million, and then ICAP?
I don't remember what, I think ICAT is 2 million.
And we're looking at about $2 million worth of damages, you're saying?
We're probably looking closer to probably
Five.
three to four.
Okay. I was estimating closer to 5, just on my own little
With the cost coming back,
thumb to the
I
wind.
kind of estimated low, and I still hit what we needed to get. But that's why we're hoping that FEMA will help us pay for some of this stuff.
So, in terms of the TWIA, all the city facilities, let's just say we have adjusters come out and they say, hey, it looks like it's $5 million, but our coverage is 4. Well, let's just say it's 4, right? So then we come out of pocket, what?
200,000 on one bill. I mean, the deductible is based on each building, on the value to replace each building.
I see.
It's a replacement cost. Your deductible is based off your replacement cost.
So is it premature to have these conversations until we get those estimates back in terms of the adjusters?
As far as the budget goes, no.
No.
We have to start this. The budget is not, I'm telling you, this is probably what you have, because you're gonna go, we may have $1 million in expenditures that's still gonna take what your reserve is 1.8, and I wouldn't go any lower than that because of what we have experienced in the past. So what I'm telling you is this is probably as bare bones as you're gonna get before you.
And will the coverage between TWIA and ICAP work in conjunction? So that we're able to, for lack of a better expression, double dip? Or are we double covered in essence between those two, or no?
No, one or the other.
Oh, it's one or the other.
TWIA has certain standards, and they cover certain things, and then what they don't cover, you go to ICAT for to see if they cover.
I see.
It's kind of like you're shopping different, but they don't cover the same buildings.
But I guess maybe the better baseline question is that it's not that we are basically uncovered or underinsured.
No, we're not underinsured.
Okay. So is it in your opinion that we're sufficiently insured?
As sufficiently as we can be, yes.
As sufficiently as we can be?
Based on what we have, yes.
Well, that's good.
What coverage we can get.
So I remember hearing here recently in the news about how this particular hurricane was supposed to be a Category 1, and it's probably a lot worse than it was set out to be. But more importantly, that it set a precedent early on that the rest of the hurricane season may be much, much worse. Mm-hmm. And so just kind of forward thinking here, being a little proactive, what are we going to be doing in your mind here? What should we be thinking, considering budget-wise as it relates to this insurance? Because I'm wondering, are our premiums going to go up? Do we have to seek out for additional coverage?
There's no other additional coverage that I can seek. We've shopped it. We look around. We do those different things. All we can do is every storm you would have your deductible all over again.
Okay.
So it's just one of those things that we have to go with the flow on and see what comes our way. That's why I'm standing before you tonight and saying, that 2.8, if it was me and I'm standing in front of you, Mr. Petty might slap me later, we're done. I don't want to go any below, I wouldn't recommend going any below that right now after what we've had happen just this last week, knowing the possibility that something may come as we go through and if we see we end the year better and we different things, then maybe next year, fiscal year, I know if Mr. Bass was sitting here, he'd probably give me that look. No budget amendments, Kathy, but we come back to you with a budget amendment to try to do some of these other different things that the departments have asked for or different projects. I've been told, Mr. Petty, to speak my mind and tell y'all the truth, so I'm standing before you telling you the truth.
and we appreciate that.
Yeah, I just have one other comment, Mayor, and that is, you know, I don't mind you being the doomsday, or if you want to characterize it that way. To me, it's just keeping it real and giving us the facts, you know, so that we can really assess truly what our problem is here, and then for that matter, decide on what the remedies may be. But that said, you know, we're a coastal town, and there's 1,000 other coastal towns along Texas that have the same problems, and they still walk and chew gum at the same time. So I don't want us to think about this budget as hamstringing us or tying our hands for us not to be able to do the big and amazing things that we're thinking about doing. And so I just want to make sure I put that out here, because I don't want to be overly pessimistic or doomsday about it. It's, you know, we'll take our lumps, we'll take our medicine. We have insurance, we're properly covered, which is encouraging. But then we readjust. I think we had, what, 26 million or 22 million?
No. Okay, so what you have to understand is when they tell you 26 million and 22 million, it's not that you can just go spend it.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just.
Some of that is
Yep.
bond money that's restricted.
Yeah.
Some of it's restricted by your settlements. Some of it's in the water wastewater. Some of it's in the general fund. It's in different pots, and some of it is legally restricted, and it can only be used for certain things.
Correct.
So it's not that you have $26 million that you can do all these different things with. It's, you know, it's not that.
What's the pot that's the least regulated? It's the general fund, right?
That is correct.
And what's the standing balance on the general fund?
Right now, we're projected to have $7 million. However, of that, you're required in your reserves to keep a little over $4 million in reserve because of your fund balance policy. You start dipping beyond that, what that does is that if you have to go out for bonds or you have to borrow money, that drives up your interest rate. You've set that policy, so you stay within that policy, because by having those policies in place and keep those reserves ample, that helps you buy down your interest rates if you go out for debt. It keeps your credit rating higher, so you don't want to dip below that 90-day reserve.
Fair enough. Last question I would have, that you just jogged a very curious question here. If we're looking at, what was the total amount? You said about 2 million, 2.8 million?
$2.8 million. at
$2.8
this
million.
moment.
And you're saying, hey, we may have to dip into our general fund on that. Don't count on using that for anything.
Correct.
I'm wondering, can we finance that as well, so that we're not depleting our cash reserves and then we can debt service that 2.8? I don't know why we wouldn't be able to take a loan out for that, so that we're not.
It's not
We're
as
not
easy
running
as you
thin.
think to just go take a loan.
Well, how difficult it is. I'm just trying to make sure that we preserve the cash, right? Because cash is king. As long as we have that cash to,
So what happens
Keep us
is if,
afloat.
depending on how you do debt service, could be raising your property taxes to pay back that debt service. It's debt service, what we call bonds, they're paid back through pledging property taxes and different things like that, so that could raise the property tax
right.
rate.
But I'm not suggesting bonds. I'm suggesting just a basic loan that we could take out from a
We
bank.
can't. We're legally restricted on what we can't go to the bank and just borrow money unless it's got something behind it.
Well, I'll have to get with the city manager and with the city attorney on that, because I know in the previous administrations there were outstanding loans, and I'm curious how those were put together. And
No.
we'll go from there.
Okay.
I feel confident that we have some smart people
Yeah.
working for the city, and we're going to figure this out.
Yes, sir.
And also remember, this is a living document up until we bring it, the final budget to you. So we'll have more information as it comes available to
Yeah.
us, where we can make adjustments and things like that. We still got to iron out some things with department heads as well. And me and Mrs. Zell fully anticipate meeting with every council member and going over this budget thoroughly to make sure we're all on the same page of what we're looking at.
Well, I'll just say this last thing here then, is that, you know, the city has just been hit by a severe storm, and like every household in the city of Freeport that's been affected, they're all going to be tightening their belts. And so I expect the same thing out of the city budget. And so we may need to look at a freeze of pay increases and any other miscellaneous non-essentials. And I just want to make sure I put that out there now.
Council, any other questions or comments?
Yes, I do have a couple of questions. Mrs. L., can you explain to me what application tracking software is? I mean, I'm an IT guy, and I think I know
Application
what it is.
actually, it's for the employee applications. It was part of a request that came from Ms. Fisher on tracking our applicants as they come in. We do not have, we use an Access database right now, and our applications have increased, and it's a very manual process, and we don't, it gets a little, because some of the departments receive their own applications, so it gets a little thing. So this was a program that'll help us track our applicants and be able to give us more statistical data than we have available now.
Okay. Because when I see application, I'm thinking of
No.
computer application, and thus,
No,
I was
this is-
like, okay.
This is employment application.
And then, this, you can probably answer it, it may be better for, our IT manager. Server replacement. Do we have servers, that are vulnerable, thus the requirement to replace these? And how many servers are we talking about?
Vulnerability wise, it's a gamble. We can't insure them anymore. Most of them are going to be okay as far as if we don't replace them, but it is going to be risking potential failure without warranty. Now, I do have some ideas in mind, just fixing up our backup structure just so that we can, in the event of a complete hardware failure, bring something new in and then put it back on there just the same as it was and have something in the meanwhile. Just part of our basic backup strategy anyway. As far as physical servers, we have 4 in our cluster, and we're running about 10 servers right now on that cluster. If we were to lose 1 or 2 nodes, I believe the others might be sufficient to carry the weight. It's really just a question mark at this point as far as at what point are they going to fail? The architecture I'm looking at replacing them with is going to be a lot easier to warranty. It's actually going to drive our costs down as far as that. And I think one of our nodes is still under insurance or insurance-able for another year or 2, but the other 3 are completely out as of this fiscal.
Okay. And, sorry, this is probably tech talk. But the biggest question that I have is vulnerability to cyber attack.
Oh, no, I wouldn't. They're pretty secure.
Okay then. And then the last question that I have is also IT related. Website upgrade, $20,250. That seems excessive
That's about going rate to redesign the entire website for the city of
for
Freeport.
the city of Freeport.
Yes, sir.
Every single bit of it.
Pretty much.
We need to talk about that.
Okay.
Because I think we can probably work that out to a little bit better. Yes, our website does need an upgrade, but that 20,000, it seems excessive for my dealings with websites. So
Okay.
that's all the questions that I have for right now.
Hopefully, we'll have some more communication on this and a meeting with city manager before it's time to adopt, and we can tackle these adjustments or whatever as needed. So we're going to move on. Agenda item number 4, consideration and possible action approving resolution number 2024-2870, authorizing a revision to the City of Freeport Police Policy Handbook, Chapter 9, Employees' Wages and Benefits, Section 9.03, Group Health, Life, and AD&D. Ms. Fisher.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. Staff does recommend approval of this resolution. It is my understanding that this wellness requirement was actually requested by council. So we are adding section 9.03A to add a wellness requirement. It will help keep costs down. It will help with early detection, prevention. It will keep our employees healthy. Employees who choose not to have an annual wellness exam or a biometric screening will be charged $25 per pay period towards their medical premiums. With this, actually, the $25 per pay period would start October 1st of 2025, so that they would have from October 1st of 24 through June 30th of 25 to get that wellness physical before we start charging them.
So, the question I have, and I think we're on the same page. In our company, if we do the wellness and do the biometric screening, log it and everything this year, then next year we receive $25 off per
You
pay
don't
period.
get charged at $25, so.
Yeah,
same
we
basic
get
thing.
$25 off.
Yeah, we just don't charge you the 25, so same thing, yes.
Council, any questions? I think it's a great idea, great plan. We have a motion to approve by Councilman Pena,
And I'll second that motion.
and the second by Councilman Matamoros. Council, any other discussion on this? Hearing none. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item number 5, consideration and possible action approving resolution number 2024-2871, authorizing a revision to the City of Freeport Policy Handbook, Chapter 3, Employee Appointments, Section 3.04, Nepotism. Ms. Fisher.
Yes, staff also recommends approval of this resolution. This basically kind of cleaned up the language, made it clearly define family member. The old policy had charts about first degree, second degree. This just says this is what a family member is. It was also changed to include significant others who live in the same household. Our previous policy didn't have that. It addresses employees in the same chain of command. It addresses family members of directors, not just employees in the same department. So it makes our nepotism policy a little tighter. It does make an exception for family relationships that the city is aware of, but it would limit employees moving forward. There are approximately 11 different family relationships within the city right now that would not be subject to this policy.
Council, is there any questions or comments for Ms. Fisher? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Motion to approve by Councilman Pena. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
And a second by Councilman Matamoros. Any discussion needed? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 4-0. All right, we're going to move on to work session. Councilman Pena, Ward A.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody for coming out and hope everybody is now safe. And it's my understanding that there wasn't any, there were no fatalities during the storm, so really grateful for that. And hoping that everybody now has full use of their utilities in their homes. Mr. Petty, there aren't any homes or properties in Freeport that are without electricity at this point?
There's a few still left.
There's still?
Yes, sir.
Do you know what area of Freeport?
I don't know. They're scattered out in some of the wards, yes, sir.
All right. Well, I guess we will be working diligently with CenterPoint to ensure that those families get electricity here sooner than later.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I also want to touch on, the city responding and the getting the streets and the trees and cleaned up here. One of the things I noticed here was at the beach, the porta potties were torn to shreds, and see if we can't get some new ones out there as soon as possible. Thank you. And then also the lights at Second and Velasco, I know they're operating, but there's a couple of them still dangling. Who's in charge of repairing those?
The city crews are. So
Okay.
we'll get a crew on.
Do we have a timetable on that?
As soon as I can get them free from other things.
I
yes.
appreciate it. Definitely want to also extend kudos to the police department for running security through the evening hours when there was no electricity, and just running security lights throughout the community. I know a lot of families were appreciative of it, so just want to extend that as well, that thanks. And then the next thing was an ongoing question here is the tree cleanup and brush schedule with, I guess, the storm response group, or for that matter, if it's AmeriWaste. Do we have any updates on that? Will there be a schedule to be coming out specifically for the cleanup?
The AmeriWaste is taking care of our regular trash. We contract with Asprit to do our emergency storm debris, and they began that today. And that'll be a first pass through the entire city, and then they'll come back around for a second pass. Chief Motley, emergency manager, he may have some more info on that in executive session.
Okay. I wasn't sure if there was a schedule that was going to be placed out, or just a note to say every day they're coming out. Okay.
Every day.
And is there a particular schedule in terms of what wards should expect, I guess, contact first from that response team?
I haven't seen one, but Mr. Motley will address that if he has that information here in a little bit.
All right.
We'll disclose that after executive session.
I also want to make mention that, during the course of the last week here, there was a lot of questions as to what was going on, and I just wanted to ask that we have communication, a direct communication, a group text with the council, exclusively the council. Can we please have that going forward?
Yes, sir. I know when the storm hit, of course, we lost our phones and lost internet just like
okay.
everybody else did. So we didn't have
Yeah.
no way to communicate other than radio. So that's
Got
why
it.
you weren't getting some information to you.
If it comes to that, can we get radios then, so that we're all on the same page? So that when I get my internet or cellular service, and I'm getting the calls from the residents that are saying, hey, we're flying blind, that I can actually give an intelligent response to, or an informed response. Just trying to make sure that we, here we are early on in the hurricane season. I'm worried that we're going to be here again, at least maybe one more time, unfortunately.
Yes, sir. There's a learning process with a storm like this, and we've already been talking about it, so.
I appreciate it. And then as far as the street sweeper, I saw the street sweeper was out. I guess they got that fixed, and I was just curious if that's going to still be put to use here.
Yes, sir. We have one on rent, and we're utilizing it to move all the leaves and sticks to the curb line so we can pick it up, because our vacuum sweeper will not pick up the limbs and stuff. It clogs it up, so it's easier for us to get it all to the side and then shovel it into trailers.
Yeah, I was going to make mention that in terms of some of the brush that was removed or swept up away from the drainage lines, that was a good idea. But unfortunately, in some of the spots, they moved it to the side, and it would have been better had it been on top of the curb or on the sidewalk versus there on the street, because it just got swept the following days when it was raining again. So just wanted to pass that along so that you were aware that those drain lines were still on the streets being reclogged. And we just touched on the insurance claim for City Hall, and I got to thinking, okay, so I know we're talking about City Hall, and I wanted to make sure that I brought this to light in terms of the remodel of City Hall or the sale of City Hall. It's actually going to probably be a lot more difficult to sell the property as in its current condition, getting maximum value for it. But possibly the insurance claim will actually help to supplement any potential remodel of the building. And just kind of curious if that's been considered, or for that matter, in terms of the dollar amounts we might be expecting from the TWIA.
We don't have those numbers yet, but we got a contractor that's going to begin tomorrow boarding the windows up on City Hall. And with the water damage that came into it as well, we have to have an asbestos inspection completed on the third floor, because some of the asbestos that we did not disturb in the first two phases got disturbed during the storm.
Got it.
So once it's disturbed, you have to take a look at it and see if it's got to be abated. So that company will be coming in after that to take a look at it, and then we'll move forward from there.
All right, I appreciate it, thank you. And then the second last thing I have here was that the last meeting, there was the video, where there was issues with the video, and I was wanting to make sure that the completeness of the meeting, of the last meeting on YouTube was, I guess, cleaned up and posted correctly and in its entirety.
We had a bandwidth issue affecting our previous stream. The buffer could only hold as much as the computer would allow it to, so I kept it running after hours so it would catch up as much as it could, but at some point it just overflowed and dropped everything after that point. So unfortunately, we don't have on our channel available that footage. I've already corrected it. I corrected it, pretty much immediately afterwards. Tonight's meeting, we're in high definition. Going forward, I'll be monitoring streams prior. But as far as those meetings, no. We actually had affected 3 meetings before it was reported. Not council meetings, 1 P&Z, 1 Board of Adjustment meeting, and the 1 council meeting.
Yeah, so you're saying that basically that won't happen again, is what you're saying?
Correct. I've already
Okay.
corrected the issue. and
But
identified-
as far as that video,
It's-
that meeting is lost?
Correct.
All right. And the other thing was, if there's any way that this might also, to do a dual channel, one to YouTube and to Facebook. This way, there might be the ability to see the video live.
So that issue would have actually been doubly impacted had we been doing that, since it was a bandwidth issue with the police department as a whole.
Okay.
We had basically no upload bandwidth to work from. And so it was only being able to allow so much through at a time. We were about 2 agenda items behind. I monitor currently pretty much every stream while we're doing these meetings, so I was aware of the issue pretty much immediately, but there was
Yep.
nothing I could do to correct it during the meeting without losing what we already had.
Got it. All right. And, you know what, I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, sir. Councilman Matamoros, Ward C.
Thank you, Mayor. So I would like to thank those residents and visitors who attended in person, viewed online. Thank you to those residents who spoke during citizens' comments. Mr. Zerlot, thank you for bringing this issue up. I will speak with Mr. Petty about this and see what we can possibly get done. I'd like to thank our city manager, Lance Petty, our emergency management official, Chris Motley, our fire, EMS, police, public works staff for working tirelessly before, during, and after the storm. Thank you. I'd also like to thank Ms. Sandra Levy for helping coordinate volunteers for the cooling buses and some debris removal. Mr. Petty, I do have a couple of questions that residents have been asking about for this debris removal that's starting today. The bagged leaves, will they be picked up? Because there are a lot of residents who put just leaves in bags, and then now it states that they won't pick up bagged debris.
I'm one of those residents as well. Keep them separated for right now. They're going to focus on the storm debris first to get all the big trees and vegetation out of the way. And then we'll look to address that. And those will probably be picked up more than likely. If they're not approved for them to pick up, they'll be picked up for the normal bulk trash pickup per your ward.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Also, permitting for repairing of storm damage. Will we be waiving the fees for that?
Yes, sir. We have posted it and are waiving fees for 90 days.
Okay. Which then also brings to another topic that maybe you can answer it, or maybe it has to go in front of legal. There are other cities who have residents who have fines, outstanding fines, things like that. And they are doing, if you work to help clean up this debris, they are taking a money off of that. Is that something that we will consider doing?
I can answer that. Sorry. We do offer community service as a way to offset fines. They just have to go to the court system, say that's what they want to do, and then we work with Rudy in the Public Works Department to schedule them. But we do use what we call community service workers as a way for them to offset their fine. So we already do offer that, and if that's something they want to do, all they have to do is go and talk to the ladies in the court.
It is a municipal court issue. So it's really part of our deferred adjudication program. They could always petition the court for some
Yeah.
kind of a work program, but that's going to be up to the court, not council.
Yeah, like I said, we do a community service program already.
Okay. Okay. So those are my questions. I just want to make a statement. And in making this statement, I'm just going to read something. This is a quote from Theodore Roosevelt during his speech at the Sorbonne in Paris, April 23rd, 1910. It's the man in the arena. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes up short again and again. Because there is no effort without error or shortcoming. But who knows the great euthymisms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. And I read that it's something that I've always heard. This storm brought out the good in Freeport. It also brought out the bad. There was a lot of residents who went and got on social media, but they also went out to the public. And they did some things that were perplexing. They attacked people for no reason when they were trying to help them out. They attacked people for no reason other than just sitting up here on this council seat. They attacked people without having the facts when they knew they could have just made a phone call and received those facts. I was one of those persons who was attacked, had people drive up onto my property, took a picture of my home damaged, because I have a generator, and they attacked me like, oh, he's comfortable, he doesn't care about the residents. Furthest from the truth. I was out there helping residents, neighbors. I invited anybody in my neighborhood who had a little one that didn't have that to come to my house, try and cool off a little bit. It's a tough job when you go through times like this, stretches you thin. But you know what? It makes you tougher. Because when you get out there and you see all of your neighbors who fight to try and help make one difference in one person's life, whether it be giving them a cold bottle of water or a hot meal. And so to all those residents who like to get behind a keyboard and say, hey, there weren't things that were done, I've always said it, my number's available. contact me. Everything was done by our mayor. He was here the whole time. By our city manager. We suffered just like everybody else. We weren't given any special treatment. We were without power, without water. So I say all that in saying this. If you have something, come and say it to us. Come and ask us. I don't think anybody here on this council will tell you otherwise. We'll tell you what we know. We'll get through this tough time. We'll come out better on the other side. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Rosso, Ward D.
Yes, I have a couple of things. First of all, thank everyone for coming out today to be a part of the meeting tonight. I was so glad to see the grabber trucks. We're not waiting on them, but they're working. And, you know, in most cases, the linemen, the people working on the electricity, doing a great job, in my opinion. Yeah, I have a Generac, but I had 3 different families beside myself staying with us. So I think I did my share of being there for the public. I worked the pods, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I'm just telling you that we do care. Tarps, water, a lot of stuff was given out, and I was very much a part of it, and I'm not a spring chicken no more. I'm glad to see all the help we're getting from other cities. Freeport, I think we're blessed to have that. The fishing fiesta went well, in my opinion. The fireworks display was better than Lake Jackson. Awesome, actually. I have to agree with Mr. Matamoros, even though I'm not a social media person. People hide behind the keyboard, like he was saying. But the people that's out there working and doing the work, they're not doing what the people that's not doing. So I say turn a deaf ear to criticism. We're always going to have criticism. Even right here in council meetings, people come here just to criticize. That's all I got, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. I too would like to thank everybody that came out and those of y'all that got to watch this tonight on high definition YouTube. You know, I want to echo the sentiments that y'all have made. I have not seen it, but I have heard that someone pulled up to the city hall, took a picture of the sign that says mayor parking, and said, you know, someone call and check on the mayor, he's not here. You know, Monday night was a pretty rough evening. Looking at the destruction that we have outside, that was probably one of the worst storms. It was the worst storm as far as destruction goes that I've seen here in Freeport. And speaking to many people that have been here longer than I have, they seem to echo that sentiment. But what was encouraging is Monday morning, as soon as the winds died down to the point to where we could safely get outside, all of our neighbors were outside assessing the damage, assessing their neighbor's damage, and then all of a sudden, chainsaws. You know, people pulling limbs to the road, people checking on everybody. And it started immediately, the sense of community, just like that, it was there. And it continued, it like snowballed. I'm not going to call out names like Miss Sandra Levy, who made arrangements for all the cooling stations and what have you, because there's so many people that did so many good things for the city. I don't want to leave anybody out, so I'm not going to call out names. But it really made me proud not only to be the mayor of Freeport, but to be a part of this city. And Mr. Petty, the city workers did a tremendous job. They all deserve to be commended for what they did. Some of Rudy's workers were out there manning the pumps, making sure everything was going good up until 2:30 in the morning. And when he finally called them off because the winds were getting so bad. Then he got back and found out that Chief Motley called his folks in at 1 or 1:30. So everybody from the city employees to the citizens of the city to the businesses, straight up neighbors helping neighbors. It was a beautiful sight to see, and I'm glad that I was able to be a part of it. So, do you have anything?
Yes, sir. Of course, I'd like to thank all the city staff for their efforts during the hurricane, from the preparation prior to the storm to the post-storm cleanup is going on right now. The efforts put forth during this event were excellent. Don't care what anybody says. We weren't expecting a storm like this, and we got hit pretty hard, and I think we went pretty flawlessly through it. But the city staff, they answered the call of duty, and that just shows you their commitment to the city of Freeport and putting Freeport first. I'd also like to thank the citizens of Freeport for their patience and understanding. It was great to see, just like you, everybody coming together and working and helping each other out. I personally didn't experience any residents that were angry, upset, or anything else. They knew where we lived and knew what could happen, and everybody just came together and went to work. And as far, we do have a lot of infrastructure that's damaged that's going to take a little bit of time to get back together. But I can tell you, as far as I go and as far as your department directors go, we're only as good as the people we got surrounding us. And we have a pretty good staff on hand. None of them even questioned. As soon as the storm hit, they were here ready to go. So that says a lot about the employees here for the city of Freeport.
Thank you, sir. All right, with that, we are going to close the open section and go into executive session. It is now 7:31. Prior to going into executive session, I would like to make a motion to invite the gentleman from TWIA. I never got any names, and I would have forgotten them by now anyway, so we're going to go with the gentleman from TWIA, and also Chief Motley. I would like to invite them into executive with us so we can discuss the update from the Hurricane Barrel.
I'll second that motion, Mayor.
We have a second by Councilman Matamoros. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 4-0. So it is now 7:31. We're going to executive session regarding A, deliberations about real property. Update from Hurricane Barrel pursuant to section 551.072.